I don't know about you guys. I literally have writer's cramp from that amount of wisdom and taking a page of notes while trying to mediate that. Wow, what a special start to our evening when we get a chance to talk to a great leader who's running a multi-billion-dollar NFL organization, and then go right into Jim Trussell, right? Not only a Hall of Fame level coach, but a Hall of Fame level human being. So I hope you all took as much from that as I did. I've gotten a chance to get to know Coach Trussell a little bit through the years, but really most recently, but getting a chance to sit here for the last 45 minutes and listen to him impart wisdom on us was a gift for myself, and hopefully it meant as much to you guys. So without further ado, I promised you we would not negate the film when we were in our route and coverage talk yesterday. So we're going to get right into that. So just to give you a quick overview of what the rest of the evening looks like, I'm going to spend about 45 minutes here, really about 10 to 12 minutes or so on the film we talked about last night on the route concept stuff and the quarterback reads, and then going to jump right into a really quick overview of film breakdown. Again, we're not training GAs tonight or high level film breakdown folks. That's a 2-week course. But just to give you a sense of what it looks like to really in depthly break a film down and how we watch a film when we break it down. And then we'll close the evening with one of our Soldier Coach alumni in Anthony Golliver, who is currently coaching at the University or Southern California, California University in LA, UCLA. Will talk to us a little bit about his testimonial on the Soldiers the sideline side of things, and then talk to us about tackling. And then we'll talk a little bit to close about some homework that we have for you as we go into tomorrow evening. So I am going to share my screen here as long as I don't kick Alyssa off. Alyssa, I think we're good, right? Can you all see film on your screen? Yeah? Okay. So we left off last night in my quick drinking from a fire hose coverage and route talk to try and fit it in the window of time we had with curl flat, flat 7 and 4 verticals. And we talked about the quarterback reads in those. We talked about horizontal reads and vertical reads. So can you guys still see film? Yeah, all good? So starting off here tonight, we're going to talk about the first concept we talked about last night in curl flat concept. All right, so what this is, the film we're getting here. So this is a cut up from the last 4 or 5 weeks of the NFL season. All right, I pulled up about 7 or 8 different teams and grabbed all their curl flat concepts and picked some that I think illustrate our point here. So we're going to look at this first one. All right, Steelers versus the Giants. Can you guys see the film playing all right on your screen? Okay, all good there. Perfect. So let's look at this at the top. All right. We talked about this, right? The curl flat read being a horizontal read of the flat area defender, right? The curl flat defender. So when we're blitzing here, right, our flat area curl flat defender ends up being this player right here. They're going to insert the safety backside here. We're going to a cover 3 look in the back end. So we've got curl flat here, insert to the hook, and a hook player here. All right, so where's the read? The read ends up being the curl flat player here. And we said if he expands through the curl zone into the flat, it's a really easy read for the quarterback, and we're going to bang it in on the curl, right? Is exactly what we get here with Daniel Jones, I believe, is the quarterback. So remember, horizontally, we're reading this player here. Did he widen to the flat, or is he hanging in the curl? Here he pre-snap aligned in the flat. All right. So it's a really easy pre-snap read. All right. When I identify that guy as the curl flat defender, pretty straightforward. Throw it for about a 10-yard gain. Okay. Brock Purdy against the Rams a couple weeks ago. Let's look at this one here. Going back to the top of the screen here again. And we see this. Here's our read, our curl flat defender. Remember, horizontally, where is he going? Is he hanging in the curl window or is he expanding to the flat? Again, pretty easy read and really good job by Brock here because he's actually reading the backside first in his progression, right? Little hint for folks. Most of the time, the side we're faking the play action to is the side we start our progression at. Not always, but most offenses schematically are built that way in the passing game. So he doesn't like the read here. He gets back to the curl flat read off of this guy's horizontally. He's widening with the flat very clearly, which gives us a clean throwing lane for the 15-yard, 12 to 15-yard gain into the curl. Okay, just a couple more here. I think we're getting the point. All right, let's look at curl flat here again at the top. Now our flat route's coming from somewhere else. Instead of a receiver, our flat route, our flat control is coming from the back. All right, and we're getting a curl from the number one receiver. Our flat area defender ends up being the down safety in this situation, or the probably the down safety in this situation, who expands through the window. All right, so the read tells me to throw it to the curl. Now, corner plays this really tight and has a chance to make a play on the ball, and PB used it here. Good play by the corner. Couple more here, and we'll get to the flat seven concept. So Arizona against Miami, again, a couple weeks ago. All right. Here we get an insert safety. So pre-snap, we're thinking this guy is probably our curl flat read, right? On the snap, when that guy exits to the other side of the field and we're getting some sort of a zone 3-over-3 zone pressure, he recognizes that the insert safety now becomes his horizontal read as the curl flat defender or the hook to flat defender in this situation, right? When he widens through that curl window, he's got a clear window to throw the curl. Again, corner does a pretty nice job of squeezing this. But like we said on some other things the other night, when the defender has to come through the wide receiver's body to try and catch the ball, that's a tougher play. All right. And the best thing we can do is try and rake his hands down and PBU this because we don't have clear access to the ball. Good throw and catch there. Last one here. Okay. I believe we're looking at this at the top. All right. Our curl flat defender is heavy to the box here, right? Expands really late. So as he's expanding right now, if we draw a line from the quarterback to the receiver, that linebacker is standing in the curl window, but there isn't anybody out here expanding to the flat. So great read here by the quarterback and immediately essentially checking it down to the flat for about a 6 to 7 yard gain. We'll take that all day long. Okay. Next, we are going to hit the flat seven concept. All right. Talked about this again the other night. Cleveland against Cincinnati. I believe that was week 7. So a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago in the NFL season. We're going to look at Joe at the top here. Okay. So again, the flat route doesn't always have to come from a receiver or a tight end. Here we're getting the flat control from the back. We're running what we call a circus 7 here. So he's going to press this inside and then back out. All right. Usually your 7 routes come from number 2 receivers, but with the cut split here, we can run it from number 1. We almost get a bench route to a flat 7 route. Pretty easy read, right? Our flat area defender, we said this is a vertical read of the flat area defender. Does he sink vertically underneath the 7, or does he come down and play the flat route? What we're going to see from the backside will linebacker here is he never gets any depth. He flattens with the flat route, right? And we have a huge window here. Joe has a huge window to throw the 7 cut. Corner is the thirds player here, so he's playing a deep third on top of this and doesn't have a chance to make any kind of a play on the ball here. This is actually, for Cleveland, I know it looks like cover 3. This is their version of a Tampa 2 rotation. This guy is playing that Tampa 2 Mike middle hole, and these two are playing like cover 2, right? This flat player here and this flat player expanding to play like a cloud flat corner, right? But they got to expand post snap. So we see the read there. Joe Burrow against Kansas City a couple weeks ago. This is earlier in the season, right? Maybe week 1, if I remember correctly. All right. So the read's at the top. All right. Watch the flat player here. We're in traditional cover 2, right? We see the 2 deep safeties here backpedaling and deepening and widening on the snap. We see the corner sink underneath the 7 route, right? Immediately on the snap. He opens his hips and turns and runs with it, which makes it an easy read for the quarterback to check it down to the flat, all right, for about a 6 to 8 yard gain, right, with the yards after the catch. Okay. Kansas City versus the Chargers. Okay. You guys still see the screen okay? All's good? Okay. I'm having a little bit of glitchiness on the rewind here, but we're looking at it at the top. Okay. He's reading, immediately reading that corner at the top. That's where his eyes go on the snap. I would have said this. The corner does a nice job of sinking on the snap, right? He's feeling just a little bit of pressure in his face. Not sure he can throw this and get it out on time to the 7 window. All right, so takes the 5-yard check down on the flat. Good play. Had he had a little bit more time here, I think he could have thrown the 7 route as well. Okay. Looking at it at the top again here. All right. Here's our read, right? Remember, flat 7 is a vertical read off the flat area defender. Here's our flat area defender. Where is he going, right? Is he sinking enough to close this 15 to 18 yard window on the 7 route? And clearly with this quarterback right here, if any of you guys have ever studied him, he is as big an arm quarterback as there is in the National Football League. He can make those. It's not even a tight window in the National Football League, but he can make that window throw all day long. All right. If he can get that corner to hesitate at all, which he does, instead of gaining depth here, he's actually gaining width, right? And he's losing depth, which opens up this window to the 7. Good throw and catch. Okay. I believe this is going to be at the top. That's right. So Carr from a couple weeks ago. I'm sorry, this is the bottom. We're looking at the bottom here. I put this one on here. This isn't a traditional spacing for flat 7. This actually makes it really hard. And when you do this off of a max protection, which you see here, right? There's 7 in the protection, 7-man max protection. You can run this 7 route a whole lot deeper, right? Which makes it really hard on that flat area defender. Well, that's still a vertical read. That's still his responsibility to play underneath the 7. But usually we say the top of that zone is 12 to 15 on the 7 route. He's got to play this almost to 20, right? So when he doesn't get enough depth here, there's a window, a big window here to throw the 7 route, right? They don't complete it, right? The ball's in the air for a long time. He's a little bit early with the throw out of the break, right? And it's an incompletion. I will tell you this, when teams can do this to you, when they can break 7 routes at 30 yards instead of usually the window you're going to throw the 7 is 18 to 22 yards on the sideline, right? When you can extend that to 30 to 35, this guy right here, if you can protect it, this flat area defender can rarely be right. Because even when he oversinks to play 20 yards underneath that and you check it down, now this check down becomes a 12 to 13 yard gain just on the check down by the time you can rally to it. So again, really difficult when you can break it that deep. For all of you Tyreek Hill fans, this is scar tissue for me in the National Football League, coaching against Tyreek. When you play against Tyreek Hill and they put him in the slot, with the same timing that you would throw that 7 route at 18 to 22 yards, Tyreek can run that same route on the same timing at about 28 to 30. Right? Which makes it completely different when you try and defend them because you really got to oversink the under coverage to be able to navigate the speed of what that guy, and there's like a handful of guys in the league that have that kind of speed. So hopefully that clears up the vertical reads on flat 7. The last one we're going to get to here before we jump into the film breakdown is 4 verts. So again, this is, as crazy as this sounds, 4 verticals is becoming true 4 verticals, where you're running 4 guys vertical down the field, is becoming less and less on the National Football League, right? People are reading out of vertical routes, meaning if the corner bails, instead of the outside receiver running a vertical, he'll sit it down as like a knockdown or a comeback, right? Same thing in the slots, right? So very rarely do you get a true 4 vertical read. So it took me a while, right, to get a cut up list here put together for you, but I think we've got some decent ones in here, right? Most of these are against middle open coverages, right? So here comes our 4 verticals. We're getting it here, we're getting it here, here, and here. And remember what we said last night, right? 4 verticals, all 4 running down the field vertically. But these 2 players, right, from the snap of the ball, when they depart the line of scrimmage, their eyes go to the safeties, right? If the safeties are split, meaning it's middle open, there's 2 safeties. Here's what we should get. We should bend this underneath that safety. We should start to bend this underneath that safety. All right? Because we want to be able to catch the ball in between the safety and the quarterback. So let's see what we get here. I'm pretty sure our target's going to be up here at the top, right? There it is. There's the bender right underneath the half field safety, right? Really tough window, right? Versus middle open defenses here. And you get the same bender look from the backside here. All right, that safety just reacts to the throw and starts to close the window. But explosive play, great read by the quarterback. Again, I wish this one looks like we're getting it versus a post safety defense, right? We've got 1 safety in the middle of the field. So this should look like, if we say these guys are our verticals, these guys should keep it high and wide, right? These 2 guys should keep it high and wide out here on the numbers, because remember, what do we say about 4 verticals? It's a horizontal read of the post safety on the 3rd level of the defense. 1st level is the D line, 2nd level is the underneath coverage, 3rd level is the deep safety. So it's a horizontal read. My read is that guy right there. So let's watch what happens here on the snap. All right. It looked like middle closed initially, where I'm going to keep it high and wide. But as I take my eyes to that safety on the snap, and I feel the safety standing over me deepen, it's actually going to cover 2. He's rotating across. His eyes are on the quarterback, never takes him all the way across the field, so he hangs here, right? The receiver in the slot here sees exactly the picture we're seeing. He sees it go to cover 2, which means what? He's no longer going to keep this high and wide. He's going to set this thing down and bend this thing inside in the void, right? And let's see what we get here, right? He bends it into the void to the middle of the field, right, for an explosive vertical passing game play. All right, this one's pretty straightforward. Again, we've got our 4 verticals here. We know this. We got 2 high initially. We don't know what's going to happen post snap, but these guys initially should think about bending back underneath the safety. So there's the look, right? He bends it underneath. He bends it underneath. We almost are running in the same space here. All right, but find the completion to the passing weakness here. The passing weakness versus 2x2 into cover 2, because usually the Mike linebacker is going to open to the passing strength, right? This guy's actually playing their middle closer here. So that is the read for the quarterback. If we say this guy right here was the horizontal read, clearly he's clear to this side, right? Pretty easy read for even a rookie. I know we got a couple Bears fans on here, right, Dorian? Okay, a couple more here, and then we've got to catch ourselves up a little bit and drink from a fire hose on the film breakdown. Okay, 4 verts here again. We're getting the middle open look with the 2 high safeties. All right. And here's one of those looks where we're just getting it from 4 verticals, but we're just getting verticals from this side, right? So if you just think about, cutting this other side of the field off, this guy's reading the same thing. If this safety is high and wide, that safety is high and wide, I'm going to bend this thing to the middle of the field. And I know I got a ton of lines going for you there, so hopefully you could read what I was saying there. Bending it back to the middle of the field, easy read, explosive vertical pass. Let's get one more here and then we will move on. Okay, same thing here. Middle open, 4 verticals. Where's the read? The weak seam, right? Should be our read. He's bending it back inside the safety as I'm bending it inside the safety here, right? The weak hook player ends up sinking with this, but if he bends it far enough, it should always get thrown inside of him, which it absolutely does here. Should be a catch and run, contact at the goal line, touchdown. We just don't end up completing it. So I hope that gave some insight into what we started into yesterday with all of those route concepts with the quarterback read layered into it. So easy concepts, curl flat, flat 7, and 4 verticals that are run at every level of play from middle school all the way to the National Football League. Everybody good there? Okay. We are going to keep things moving here because we've got our special soldier coach guest coming in about 25 minutes or so. And I'm going to get you a break right before that. So I got to keep this thing moving. So film study, right? Film breakdown. Couple things we need to think about here when we start this conversation. And again, I'm going to give you a whole lot in a very short window of time here. So hang on. I'm not trying to get you to be Bill Belichick here in being able to pad a game and all the nuances of it. Just trying to give you a feel for what film breakdown really entails and how maybe it morphs and looks a little bit differently depending on the level of play you're at. So let me get to, can you guys see film breakdown on your screen? Yes, okay, perfect. All right, so a couple questions we're going to ask ourselves here in the beginning, right? What information do I want to know, right? Obviously, I'm going to go watch the film. Coach has told me whether I just took a GA job at the college level, whether I'm a quality control coach at the National Football League level, or whether I'm a high school or middle school coach who the head coach just came in and said, hey, break this film down on our opponent, right? Okay, so what do we need to know when we go into that? First, what do we want to know from the film, right? And what information needs to be entered to gather the knowledge, right? I started out in my career entering information on an Excel spreadsheet, VHS, right? VHS tape at the time, right? Didn't have all these fancy video editing systems that we do now. We had some, but they didn't integrate very well. So that's the way I started. So it was matching the individual clip 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 with an Excel spreadsheet over here with the basics, right? And we'll talk about some of these things. What's the quarter? How much time on the clock? Down and distance, run pass, right? All of the basic things. So let's look at what some of those things look like. Why we break down the film, right? To gain information, to more centralize and funnel down the information so we can glean the tendencies, right? And the information about our opponent out of it. So what do those things look like? Down and distance, personnel, right? For our scouting reports and all the things we need going forward, right? So what are some general data that we're going to enter? A lot of things here: field position, hash, down, distance. What's the situation? High red zone, 2-minute, backed up, no huddle, run pass, hash result, right? Gain, what was the gain on the play? Was it a shot play? Opponent personnel, what's the formation family, right? Is it 2x2, 3x1, 4x1? And again, I told you I'm going to throw a bunch at you right here. I don't expect you to retain all of this, but just to try and give you a big picture overview, right? Tight ends alignment and so on and so forth. right, of information we're trying to glean from the film, right? Strong and weak, right? Zone plays. Where are they going? What gap? Who's the ball carrier? Who's the targeted receiver? Here's a quick columned out grid. So if you want to think about this as that rudimentary Excel spreadsheet that I started out my career with, right? With the film over here on a not a flat screen TV, but a regular, you know, whatever you call them, big fat heavy TV, right? And I'm watching the film over here, and over here I'm clicking on the down column and typing in 1, clicking on the distance column, typing in 10, right? Hash. We're in hash, it depends on what side of the ball you're on, right? If I'm a defensive coordinator, I want to hear the hash from the defense perspective. If I'm an offensive coordinator, I want to hear the hash from the offensive perspective. For me, sitting in the press box for my son's high school team on Friday nights throughout the high school season, I've got the head coaching headset and I'm going back and forth from the offense to the defense. And I got to flip it in my brain every single time I go back and forth, which isn't easy, right? When I'm on offense, I'm given the hash and down and distance if the play's happening from the offensive perspective. Flip back over to the defense. Now we're on defense and I'm doing it the other way. So perspective matters here. Field position, minus 23. It's not negative 23, minus 23. What does that mean? It means the ball has not crossed the 50-yard line yet, right? We're on the minus side of the field. Once we cross over the 50, now we work down 49, 48, from the minus 49 to the 50 to the 49 to the 48 and so on and so forth, right? Run pass, formation family, right? Again, depending on the level of play you're at, will depend on how much information that one you can glean from the film, because we all know middle school and high school film isn't the same as the NFL film that I just had pulled up on Exos, right? And we might not be able to glean as much in-depth information out of it. What we really need to know is, what does the head coach want? What does the coordinator want? If you happen to be the head coach and coordinator, you know, what do you need from the film that gives you a best chance to funnel down all that information, decipher it, and then put the best plan together, right? So that could look a lot different for different people. These are some of the things that we talk about, right, that are pretty general across football. We looked at it from an offensive standpoint. Let's go down here on the defensive data below and take a quick peek at what that might look like. So defensive personnel, right? What's defensive personnel? Well, our base personnel, let's say we're a 4-3 team. So 4-3 would be our base personnel, right? Our goal line might be a situation where we are trying to match a heavier personnel group from the offense. Remember day one, when I pulled up the football theory, all the ways to count to 11. We had 20 different ways on the left side of the screen of how to get 11 guys on the field offensively, all the way from a bunch of really skinny, fast guys to a bunch of really big, strong guys, right? And then defensively, all the different ways to counteract those personnel groups. So that's what we're talking about here from defensive personnel. Is it base? Is it goal line, where I may be putting an extra or two defensive linemen in the game and taking out a few DBs? Did they stunt? If I'm breaking down a defense, I want to know if they stunted. Was their line movement when the ball was snapped, right? Laterally. Are they changing gaps? Defensive front, and this is very generic here for a purpose. Defensive front, it was a 3-down front, meaning they had 3 down linemen. Or in goal line, it was a 6-down front. So they had 6 guys with their hand in the dirt. Did they blitz? Yes. If so, what type was it? It was a 5-man blitz, a 5-man pressure, right? Blitz direction. They brought that 5-man pressure. The extra blitzer came from the field, right? Coverage, it was man coverage, right? Field, middle field, open/closed. Why is that important? We just talked about that when I was going through all of those routes on curl flat, flat 7, and 4 verticals. That middle open, cover 2, cover 4, very different the way we would attack than a middle closed defense, cover 1, cover 3, right? So all of those things matter. And once I put in 4 games worth of data, 3 games worth of data, and I've got now a 200 play set to sort from, now the tendencies start to get really clear of if I'm breaking down the defense, what they do versus these different looks and these different situations, right? Now I can start to build my game plan about how I'm going to attack them. Same thing if I'm breaking down the offense. Got a 200 play data set, right? Now I can start to see how those things are trending, what that play caller DNA is that I'm facing, and how do I counteract that? And I say that because that's a big part of it. I think it's as important for me as a play caller, as an offense or defensive play caller, to know the playing person, the guys that are in between the white lines. I think it's equally as important to know what the DNA of the play caller is. What are his tendencies? What does he like to do in all these individual situations? Because that allows me to put my players who are in between the white lines in the best situation to be successful with the tools I have available. So that was a real quick dialogue on film breakdown. And we can go on and on and on. There's a ton of stuff in here, but I think we all kind of get the point. What I want to do, and you see the in-depthness where we can break this down. We talk about routes and we start talking about run game. We start talking about blitz game, all the different tags and titles and labels that we can put on it. Reality is, right, if all of our processes are going to be different, and some of us are going to be more in-depth and thorough than others. I'm about to pull up for all of you I'm no longer sharing, am I? I don't think so. I'm about to pull up for you a picture of some editing systems, right? We're going to look at some different ways that data is broken down and the amount of data from a lot to maybe a little bit, right? And then I'm going to pull up, we've talked a lot about the scheme to this point, right? What are they doing? What personnel groups do they have? Where are they aligning? What's this, right? That's really important to know from a tendency standpoint and a offensive play caller DNA standpoint or defensive play caller DNA standpoint of how we're going to defend or attack an opponent. Equally as important is what personnel are on the field for that other team and what do they tell us, right? And we're going to jump into that here briefly as well. So can you guys, let me get back to it here. Can you guys see video editing system on your screen here again? Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, let me see if I can grab this. All right, so this is just a standard video editing system. This is Exos, which is just an NFL and big college version of a video editing system. So I've just got our play sets from, right now we've got 4 verts pulled up. So I just want to look at this for a second. You see these columns in the beginning. The first one's name. This is how the NFL tags their film, right? The NFL film is shared with all the teams. So there's a standard way that the video directors at each organization tag the film, right, for the National Football League. The next columns you see here are my columns, right? My individual columns that just for me, right? That I have made that I can put different notes. I got comments in here. I got a coverage column here, right? Because I don't trust, some of the other breakdown stuff that the NFL does. So what else do we have here? Play number, right? Here's the game over here. Here's the play number in the game. Here was the offensive team, right? Denver, Chicago, Jacksonville, Indiana, Seattle, Chargers. Here's the defensive team. Here's the quarter. Here's the clock, right? Here's how many, again, a lot of this information you're not going to have. You won't a lot of times have the clock information unless your conference or team at the high school level films the clock, which most don't, right? So clock time, right? Play series in the sequence, right? What happened to end the series? Score differential at the time. A lot of this stuff you're not going to have, but what will you have, right? You're going to have a lot of this base data information here, right? Down and distance, 4th and 6, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 8, 2nd and 10, gain of the play, right? Field positions over here, right? So and here's the hashes. Here's the offensive personnel, 11 personnel. So 1 tight end, 1 running back, 11 personnel. right? And as we look through this, you're going to see a ton of columns, right? That you can sort for. This is a National Football League approach, right? Shifts, motion one, motion two, motion by the Y, motion by the F, motion by the Z, motion by the X, right? So there's data fields for days as you sort through this stuff, right? When you have in a situation where you can actually break down that much data. Reality is most of us are in situations where we're going to stick to the basics where we started at. I just show you this to show at the highest level of the game, there's people spending hours and hours, their entire life, right, breaking down film. That's all they do, right? They work week ahead, 2 weeks ahead, 4 weeks ahead, and that's all they do is break down film. And Anthony's going to jump on here in just a little bit, and he'll tell you at UCLA, they've got a similar process. I mean, highest level of college football. So for all of you that say, hey, coach, how do I get into college football, man? How do I get into a GA position? Realize that it ain't all sunshine and roses, baby. I mean, it's a lot of sleepless nights, 3-4 hours of sleep a night for about 4 or 5 months on end. And for nobody's coming in and patting you on the back and say, hey, great job on the data input on the Chargers game from the other day, right? They're just expecting that information's there when they need to use it. So all that being said, I want to share a couple more things with you before we transition to a quick break again and then get into Coach Golliver's talk. The next thing I'm going to share with you, and I'll preface this by saying what I'm about to show you here is no longer proprietary data, right? This is all stuff that advanced game plan work that I've done for myself or by myself for an organization a couple years ago, but the teams have changed a little bit. Some of the coordinators have changed. So I thought really hard about what I was going to show you here, just not to give any club secrets away. But so the first thing I'm going to show you is a breakdown of the Las Vegas Raiders, right? Underneath a different head coach, right? Play caller notes. Again, when we talk about the things that we said, hold on one second here. I can't see you all. There we go. We talked about, hey, all that schematic data is important, right? What's the down and distance? What's the play call? What's the formation? What's the route? Well, all of those things are important, but equally as important, and to me, almost more important, is who is their personnel and what can they do, right? What are their strengths and weaknesses and what do they tell us? Not just the on field between the white lines personnel, but the play call. This is Patrick Graham, defensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. A little bit about him. Talks a little bit about his background, who he came up under in the league, the family of defense that he works in. Because if I know that as an offensive play caller, I already have a little bit about his DNA. And I'm going to move through this really quickly because we don't have a ton of time. Defensive backs, right? Nate Hobbs, right? Robertson. Couple things on here that are telling as you watch the film. Harder sometimes at the high school level, but I will tell you this. I've been a high school defensive coordinator for a short stint in my career. High school players tell you a ton, right? On both sides of the ball, right? Every time the offense takes the field, they're telling us a story. Are we smart enough to read the book, right? Are we smart enough to know what to look at by position to be able to read the book of the story they're telling us? So a couple things here. Hand signals. This hand signal for the Raiders is cover two, was cover two, right? If number 21 is pressed in the slot as the nickel, right? It's man to man. He doesn't press and fall off on the snap, right? Why is that important? Because if I'm the quarterback, I'm doing everything I can pre-snap to try and determine coverage pre-snap. But if I can just look out there and see the nickel is pressed in the slot and know that that's a true tell, I don't have to look anywhere else, right? The next thing here, right? The Raiders DB blitz chart from weeks 1 to 16, right? So what is this? We, on the offensive side of the ball, always account for dog blitzes, right? Dog blitzes in offensive terminology in the NFL are linebacker blitzes, right? Or linebacker pressures or dogs. We don't account for blitzes with DBs, right? Unless they're a known blitzer. So I want to know from an offensive standpoint to start the week, will they blitz DBs? Two, who is the DB? What position does he play? And will they ever blitz a corner? Right? Why? Because the corners are the last ones that I ever account for in protection. So if I can see this type of diagram visually and go, okay, their top blitzer is number 30, he blitzed 18 times, right? Or whatever it is, 23 times, right? Where is he coming from? Now I can look up here and see 30, mostly edge pressures, all right? Really nothing inside. So anytime number 30 lines up close to an edge, I'm potentially going to have him in the protection count, right? Again, I can't spend all night on this like I want to. I'm going to keep this moving. All right. So again, hand signals. There's that cross hand signal again that tells us cover two. Why is it important? If I'm a quarterback wanting to know coverage, I look out there and the DBs are doing this, whether they're lined up in a post safety defense pre-snap or not, I know they're rotating to cover two, right? Brushing the jersey with their palms, right? Or giving a palm signals, cover four, right? One arm in the air, cover one, right? We got the X signal again with a different receiver. So again, a ton of stuff that we can glean out of this, right? Linebacker stances or D-line stances. What are they telling us? Base down stance by this defensive end. Tighter aligned with his inside foot up. See how close to the tackle he is with his inside foot up? All right. Now let's look at it. Rush down stance. Right now he's aligned a lot wider from the tackle with his outside foot up. Do you think that's important to me if I'm that offensive tackle to be able to tell the difference in that? Right? Those guys on the edges in the National Football League are some of the best athletes in the world. Got a chance to, again, and still work with the organization, but be coaching with the organization. We drafted Myles Garrett. There's not one of us on this call tonight that wants to ever meet that guy in a dark alley. Great dude, but the prettiest man I've ever seen, athletically and physically, right? And he can make tackles look really silly. So if we can get a little bit of ahead of him by knowing what his stance tells us pre-snap, do I need a heavy vertical set here because he's going to run by me? Or can I short set this because he's playing run right now and I can get on him faster, right? All those things are important. So real quickly, right? Some hand signal things, a lot of stuff here. I'm going to keep this moving because we've got to, I don't want to shortchange our guest tonight. From the offensive side, right? Here's the Bengals from a couple years ago. They've changed a lot offensively. There's a lot of different things here, so I'm not giving away a lot of secrets, but right, a lot of stuff about the quarterback, right? Why is the quarterback important? When I study offenses, I always start with the quarterback. Anybody know why? Rhetorical question. Because that guy has the most information to give, right? He's got to know everything. He's got to know run game. He's got to know pass game. He's got to know protections. He's got the most knowledge of any player on the football field. So the person who has the most knowledge also has the most knowledge to give, right? By body mannerisms, body language tells, right? Hand signals, verbal cues, whatever those things are. I always start with the quarterback, right? There's a bunch of stuff here on the quarterback's verbal mannerisms. If I know every time they say Ringo Lucky that it's pass and it's jet protection, do you think that's not a help to me? Right? Whether I'm a defensive lineman, a linebacker, or a DB, absolutely is. Right? So offensive line, what do they do from an offensive line standpoint? Who are they? What do they tell us from a stance standpoint? Same thing with wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, right? And then all of that 10 pages of information to get us down here to all of these different tells, right? What do they tell us? Alert, number 11, Trent Taylor is in their jet. He's their jet spy guy. So he's their jet sweep guy, right? Tight end, number 88, usage tell. 79% pass when he is in the game since week 11. 82% pass when he is in the game in zebra, which is one team's term for 11 personnel. So if I know 84 is in there, or 88's in the game and it's 11 personnel, do you think I'm not playing heavy pass? I mean, it's 82%, right? I mean, if anybody can give me 82% odds on the craps table in Vegas, you probably will never get me to leave. Right? That's the way I call third down in the off season. Right? The odds are about the same on the craps table as getting the right call in on third down. So anyway, I am going to stop there before I get off on another tangent because I know we're butting up against the time here. Alyssa, are we uh, good to go for our next break? Okay, so wrapping things up here, and I know I just gave you a lot in a very short window of time. I hope and pray you took something out of that, right? I gave you a quick overview when we hit the route stuff, which was a carryover from yesterday, but I gave you a quick overview on the film breakdown, right? And how important that is to glean the information. What I hope you felt and realized on the back end of this is as important as that scheme and data is, equally, probably in my opinion, more important is the stuff I showed you at the end, right? What are they telling us on the other side of the ball? What are their players telling us? They're the ones that play, right? What can I glean from their body language? What can I glean from their alignments? What can I glean from their stances that will help me get my side of the ball to play faster, right? I'll give you this stat. The places I've coached on the defensive side of the ball, we have been pre-snap 85 to 92% right on run pass over the course of my career, right? 85 to 92%. So what does that do for you? When you can be 85 to 92% right on run pass pre-snap and you can echo it across your defense, you can get a 4.8 guy to play at a 4.6 speed, right? You can get a 4.6 guy to play at a 4.4 speed. Why? Because you eliminate the processing and you build in for that 8 to 12% of time that they're wrong, a stimulus response, meaning I thought it was pass and it's run. Let's get the ball down, live to play another play. They might have got 8 yards, but I'm going to win. I'm going to win the battle here because I'm right 85 to 92%. Or I think it's run and it's pass. What's my bust out procedures to run, turn my back to the offense and run my ass to the top of my zone and match up the closest guy in it, right? So that stimulus response, that 12 to 8% of time that I'm wrong, what is my response to recover?